Hello, I'm Professor Dr. Deepika Srivastav from the English department. Today's lecture is for MA 4th semester students and the topic is Funny Amma, a celebrated novel by the lady novelist M.K. Indira. Now, this novel is written in Kannada and it won the Sahitya Academy Award for the best book. So, it is an acclaimed creation of M.K. Indira. The novel, written in Kannada, was translated in English by another lady, Tejaswani Niranjana, and surprisingly and astonishingly, this also won the Sahitya Academy Award. Now, the novel, both the original and the English translation, is discussed and treated in detail in books related to feminism. Incidentally, the writer, the translator, and the protagonist of the novel, that is Funny Amma, they all are females. And they are all staunch supporters of the feminist theory. The novel has a very simple style of writing. It is straightforward and it is, you can say, very easily understandable, and that is why people from all strata of the society, they have read it and reread it to this day. It is a journey of a child widow and it is covered very well within 160 pages. I mean, it is short, it is crisp, and it does not bore the reader. And that is why this is an indication of the strength and literary achievement of the writer as well as the creator, as well as the creation. We will discuss the book in detail later, but let me introduce you to the writer of this book, that is Funny Amma. Before that, let me explain why we need to read Indian literature and works of regional writers. You will say, we are students of English. Why should we read novels in Kannada, poems in South Indian languages, in Assamese, in Punjabis? Well, I'll tell you why. Because all of them, whether they are from the southern states or from the northern states, they are literary gems of the country. And what they have produced is not only acclaimed, awarded, but it is unmatched, unparalleled. And it is the duty of all Indians to promote their work, to understand, to comprehend the greatness of their creations. And that is why it is important that we know what the novels or their creations or their literary achievements are. Now, as I said, let us know a little bit about the writer. The full name of this lady is Maluru Krishna Rao Indira. I repeat, Maluru Krishna Rao Indira. She was born in 1917 and died in 1994. And so she is a contemporary novelist of distinguished achievements. She died at the ripe age of 77 years. Indira was born in the erstwhile kingdom of Mysore of British India, Mysore in South India. And her father was a prosperous agriculturist. But unfortunately, she was educated only for 7 years. Still, she achieved marvelous heights in her literary career. She got married at the tender age of 12 years to Mr. Krishna Rao, and that is why her middle name is Krishna Rao, Maluru Krishna Rao Indira. That was a brief introduction of this lady. Now let us take up her literary journey. Indira studied Kannada poetry and she marveled in Kannada literature as well. What is remarkable is that she had a good and sound knowledge of Hindi literature as well, and this is a very rare quality found amongst South Indians. Knowing the knowledge of Hindi literature is really not seen there, but she had great knowledge of Hindi literature. She met the renowned writer Triveni while she was in Mandya, and Triveni was greatly impressed by her style of writing, by her personality and her literary skills. And it was he, Mr. Triveni, who motivated her to write short stories and novels and to get them published on completion. So this is how her literary career began. She then plunged into her literary journey and started writing novels and short stories. And mind you, she did this all at the late stage of 45 years. Isn't that creditable? Certainly it was. She wrote Sadanand in 1965, and later she wrote about 40 novels in her entire career. That was a short, brief introduction about the writer as well as her literary career. Now we take up the novel, her most celebrated, her most famous and renowned work, Faniyamma. This novel was completed and published in 1976. It is the moving tale of a helpless child widow who was born in a conservative Brahmin family in Karnataka. It is the real life story of a girl whom the writer Indira knew during her childhood. So it is based on facts and it is not fiction. Of course, the marvelous writer that she was, she blended the real facts with her writing skills and produced one of the most famous novels written in Kannada. Indira heard this story from the child widow's mouth while she narrated it to Indira's mother. So the writer heard it straight from the horse's mouth, so to say. And so it is the exact tale of this young child who led a life of misery from the age she became a widow. The most notable feature was that this girl remained kind, gentle, helpful and forgiving even in the most hard times she had to bear after being a widow. And another thing which has to be noted is that she retained her innocence and later she became a strong lady, though it came rather late in the day. Faniyamma was married off at the tender age of 9 to a young lad of 15 years by the name of Nanjunda. Nanjunda. The practice of child marriage prevailed in villages then, as it is even today among the rural folks. And young girls who have no say in the family, they are forced to marry at that early age. Similarly, this young lady, rather girl, she was married off to a man who was as young and could not shoulder the responsibilities of a husband. Why? Because he was himself all of 15 years of age. Astrological stars had predicted a long, happy married life for this young couple. However, all the predictions were untrue, all the calculations were wrong, and the worst that could happen to this young lady happened. She became a young widow. And what can a young widow face at that early age of 12 is for you and for me to ponder on. After this shocking event, her head was shaved. Her vermilion, which is called sindoor, it was removed. She was forced to wear white clothes. Her Mangal Sutra was removed from her neck. Her toe rings were removed. Her bangles were smashed. In a nutshell, we can say that this is the most pathetic scene of the novel, where this young girl, a child herself, is made to realize that she has become a widow from now onwards. This was a customary ritual in all Brahmin households all over India. Nothing could be more brutal and horrifying than this. That a young happy girl who was looking for a happy married life with stars in her eyes, after 2-3 years of marriage, she becomes a widow, and everything, all the aspirations come to a standstill. The child was punished for no fault of hers. It was as if her family was blaming her for the death of her husband. Their behavior pointed to this fact. Now onwards, her life was a rotten hell. She was given one meal per day. Just imagine. A young girl who needs nutrition, who needs to eat and have a happy married life. She is deprived of food, she is deprived of company, she is removed from the other family members, especially other married women, because she was considered a curse of the family. And she was working like a housemaid day in and day out. With no company and with no outside exposure, she helped in the kitchen, in the relatives' home, spending days and nights, sans joy, companionship, and succor. She leads a mindless existence, adhering to the rules and restrictions of dharma laid down by the Brahmins of the society. South Indians, just like North Indians, are rigid and they adhere to the rules which are laid down in the scriptures, and for widows, life is a hell, as I told you. She had to practice, amongst other things, Madi, the act of purification in daily work, which was even worse than all the tortures she was undergoing at this stage of her life. She never knew what it was to be a wife. She never had children, so motherhood was snatched away from her. She never enjoyed conjugal union between a man and a woman. So, all the time she was just lost in her thoughts, helping in the household work and not having any other work except this job of a maid. Now, that was her life. Years later, another woman in the same household, she refused to accept the same fate as Fani Amma. A Muslim family needed help to bear a child. Society had changed, rules mended and modified, and life had become easier and more, you can say, easygoing and luxurious. Fani Amma became a victor by now. But as they say, it was too late in the day. And now she started supporting the woman in her household. She helps the Muslim family now that she has freed herself from all moral obligations of the orthodox, rustic, traditional society. Now she gets free from all these restrictions and she is bold enough to help this lady of her household. Also in the novel, we have this young Dakshayani who takes on devilish hues and is a foil to the character of Fani Amma. She subverts the oppressive structure of the house and is rebellious in all her ways and action. She does not listen to any rules that are laid down by the family members and she is bold. This is because she bears the fruit of her brother-in-law's seed in her womb. And she also refuses to undergo the Mahdi ritual of the house, as I told you. Fani Amma had tried to defend her from Bhatia from becoming a Mahdi woman at the age of 16. All her suffering are reflected in her silence. Again, that long silence when she sits in a corner of the house whenever she is despondent. So many writers in India have written about the women's long silence, the periods of failures when they are unable to change the systems of the world. So was the case of Fani Amma also. She was unable to convince Bhatia. She tried her level best, but she could not. And in her frustration, she asks herself, why was Sita ji in the Ramayana forced to undergo the ritual to prove her innocence to Ram? Her husband, Lord Ram, knew that she was pure as Ganga, but he forced her to prove her innocence when she returns from Lanka. And in frustration, she had to do so. She also questions Draupadi's, you can say, humiliation in the court when in front of her 5 husbands, the Pandavas, she is being disrobed by Yudhishthir. Had it not been for Lord Krishna, she would have been absolutely disrobed. So, when Fani Amma is also depressed, she asks this question, why are Indian women so helpless and unable to fight their fate? Now, we see that Dakshini and Fani Amma are 2 opposing women characters in the novel. They are probably in the same situation, but they behave differently. We also see that with all her goodness, Fani Amma lacks the courage, the willpower to change the world. All said and done, she is a lovely character and earns love, respect and sympathy by her dignified behavior. not once does she compromise with her self-respect. The submissive tendency of her nature earns her respect from all members of the family and the society. But nonetheless, now at this late stage of life, she learns to examine things from an independent and rational perspective. This is what has made her a strong woman, and by the end of the novel, we are not only impressed by her, we also stand by her silently. She is now a figure of courage without any revolt. So we see that she matures during these times of hardship and she does not succumb to any pressures. Though she leads a colorless life, a joyless life, and adheres to the Brahmin rules, regulations, and restrictions, yet she is a person whom we all look up to, and that is the strength of the novel. Ultimately, she died all alone without any help in 1952, and if I may say so, she earned the respect of millions of people for all times to come. Thus ended her lonely journey, the journey of the child widow, Fani Amma. With these words, I would like to end my lecture on the moving tale of Fani Amma. It was also made into a film in 1983, and this film also won many international awards, like the original book and the translation as well. So Fani Amma is a great, you can say, addition to the already existing literary forms of big achievers. And before I end, I would like you to ponder on the widows who live in Vrindavan. Of course, it has no relevance to this novel, but the widows of Vrindavan from all sections of the society, of all ages, are living here miserably and in a worse condition than Fani Amma. Fani Amma at least had a family. She had a roof over her head. But these widows who are all living a life worse than hell, the widows of Vrindavan, they are pitiless. They are pitiful characters and they need to be taken up later. But before I end, I would like you to just read this novel to understand the character of Fani Amma, and she will always remain in our memory. Thank you.